So I don't have to be the one to ask the first question, so any questions for our two panelists? And this is actually, again, meant to be a broader discussion, so I want everyone to chime in with questions and comments. The whole point is to bring out as much information about opportunities and what have you, like, to help you guys and your colleagues that are not here as well. So anyone want to go with the first question? Sure.
My question is for Phil. I just wanted to know the requirements on citizenship at Lawrence lab.
So on the citizenship, and you'll find that at, sorry.
So the question is about citizenship. If you notice that, I had said we had a number of international students as part of the postdoc program. At the National Security Laboratories, mostly PhD track, you can be international. It's a little bit more difficult as an undergrad to actually come in through that vehicle unless you are possibly partnering or collaborating. Our faculty, I'll call them faculty, but our staff is alongside with your faculty advisor. They can basically come in. But the answer to your question is that it's possible. It's just a question of networking in the right way. So it's definitely possible. Yeah.
And I can add to that. So I'm now a U.S. citizen, but I was a foreign national at some point, and I did a summer internship at Livermore National Lab a few years back.
You were a grad student.
I was a grad student.
He was a grad student, so, but it is possible even for undergrads, but it's about that networking that you do as well.
I want to share a little perspective on working at a nuclear weapons lab, just in case it might be of concern.
Yeah, you did work at one, right?
As an undergrad, I had an offer to do an internship at Livermore, and I turned it down specifically because I didn't want to work at a nuclear weapons laboratory. Much later in my professional career, I ended up going to Sandia, largely because I was just so impressed by the talent that I saw going there. And I knew that there was a lot that I wanted to do. I told you guys I'm trained in mechanical engineering, but what I do is more software engineering. And what I saw happening at the national labs, and especially a lot at Sandia, was these big software projects that were open source, that were really making an impact on the scientific community. And so again, open source, right? You don't imagine that a nuclear weapons laboratory would do open source, but they do a lot of open source there. They collaborate with academics. Lawrence Livermore and Sandia. So Sandia has 2 sites. About 90% of the staff are here in Albuquerque, but about 10% are in Livermore on the same site as Lawrence Livermore. In fact, Lawrence Livermore manages the physical facility for the whole site. And during the time that I was there, we took a part of the site and designated it as the Livermore Valley Open Campus. And to come into the open campus, we could bring people on site with 24-hour notice, just show a driver's license. There was virtually no paperwork involved at all. And, it was a great place to have university collaborators come in. So that's one thing. These labs do a lot of some.
What is an open campus from a lab perspective? What would be similar?
More like a university campus. So I know that
Research park of a university. So think about the university research park effort, okay? And that's what a lot of us are starting to stand up as well, because it actually helps leverage us working and collaborating with academia as well as with industry
in that light. So those are, think of it, some of your campuses have research parks. So with that in mind, that's what we're also doing, and actually trying to stand up, especially the one at Livermore, because we're partnering with Sandia, and actually, we don't know what's going to happen, but we had a building basically submitted to the administration as well. It was a third-party building. We had funding already ready to go. have partners ready to actually sign up and actually partner with us. And had universities also willing to come in and take space in the building, things of that nature, so we can actually help this notion of innovation from a broader perspective, beyond us. Like he said, that the notion of having a lot of smart people, when that the best and brightest phrase comes up, that's really what you have. I mean, you have more PhDs under one roof than any other place. That's hard to believe, but, really just trying to innovate. I don't know if you guys, you may not be of age to remember, but there used to be a center called Bell Labs, and that was about innovation. And that's kind of what you have with the labs, quite a bit, really about innovation in that level, which is kind of cool. So I'll stop taking up with other questions.
I just had one more thing on that too.
Yeah.
Okay. So in addition to everything I said about the open work, and in fact I know at Sandia now, only about 40% of the work is nuclear weapons work. So they actually do, computer science, a lot of stuff related to HPC, combustion is a big area there. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that working at Sandia, we had to maintain a security clearance. Despite that, I never actually did any classified work other than going to like 2 one-hour meetings, I think. So in my 5.5 years there, I did 2 hours of classified work. At the same time, when I talk to people who do, so I have back when I was a professor, I have a former PhD student, Dr. Carla Morris, who's at Sandia. And since I left there, she has transitioned into doing almost 100% classified work and is finding it very satisfying. One of the things she likes about it is she likes the camaraderie, very close-knit groups.
She was international.
Well, yeah, and I think it's safe to say now, because Carla is now a citizen.
That's right.
But she was also at one point undocumented.
Whoops. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, she's like my shining example of why we should not bash undocumented immigrants. This is someone who, as I said, came to this country, at one point was undocumented, went on to become the Dollar Point of the School of Engineering at the City College of New York, and went on to get a PhD, and is now doing, contributing to our national security at a national laboratory, doing nuclear weapons work. So.
Did you want to?
We also have a research park, that's actually where I work, and it's where our collaborations with the University of California, San Diego. So where I sit is actually not even Landell Space, it's the University of California, so that's kind of, we do collaborate with a lot of the different universities and things like that. And us, we have international students at the undergraduate level. I mean, it's not as common, but we do have it, so it's not uncommon. It's just, it's a lot more legwork on the mentor's part, and they're trying to hire the student on. But if they do it early enough, you can get on right away and start in May like everybody else. But my 2 cents.
So, and what she was really talking about is that's why the connection works best is because it's a classified laboratory. People are a little bit shy to actually do all that work, to process it, because you have to process. You'll take a lot longer to process, and actually have to have a clearance. People have to actually go and visit where you're from, so forth and so on. So, or if they don't have a personnel, they have to go. So, but beyond that, though, it's a good experience, and I think you'll learn a lot. More than probably, I hate to say it, more than industry, the majority of the time. Actually, I don't hate to say it, it's true. It's very true. I just don't like bashing too much. But you come to a national lab and you'll get more experience. I mean, that's why he ended up seeing later on is like, he got more exposure and experience there. But the one thing that I will say that is problematic is don't come with the expectation that you're going to skyrocket up the chain. It's pretty flat. All right. So, and with certain organizations, you have one track that you have to go down, and then another technical track, management track. There's other. Our lab, you can cross both areas, but in San Diego, for example, I think they have that track as an example. Do they have that Los Alamos too?
Yeah, we do, we do.
Yeah, so with that in mind, a lot of millennials coming in expecting to make that impact and actually move up the ladder, move up that ladder quickly, not at the labs, to be honest. So you're not gonna basically do all that. You can move up and do wonderful work. You can do what we have our own research portfolios internally. So you can apply for those research portfolios, and that's gonna gain attention. You can win a presidential award, and I mean national award. That's gonna get you attention. So you will move up from that piece and be recognized for your work and your contributions and things of that nature. And you may end up leading a group at some point in time. But moving up the ladders at the lab takes years.
So one thing I wanted to ask about, there's a variety of different ranges of experiences and levels in the education system here. In fact, the target were people who had a good feeling that they wanted to do research, but weren't yet necessarily engaged in the research process. And so this is about learning what that might mean and opportunities to get engaged. I could imagine there's a feeling of, I wonder if I'm ready, right? Because I haven't yet done research in some cases, right? I've taken classes, I've maybe done well in my classes, but I haven't yet done this research thing that you guys keep talking about. So can you guys comment on that, the element of readiness and when is too early or when is not too early to start engaging the internship opportunities? I know they're very selective, and so there is a very competitive element to it. So could you guys speak to readiness?
I can, yeah. Yeah. So our high school students, I mean, they hit the ground running. It depends. I mean, if you're doing some type of research, mentors understand that at the lower levels that you may not have all the experience that they're looking for, but they're willing to prime you so that they can mold you and potentially, especially with Los Alamos National Lab, I mean, we are losing about, I want to say, we'll be hiring about 2,500 people within the next 5 years because of this retirement wave. So really, what we would like to do is pick from the student population. And our student and postdoc offices are different. They're separate offices, so not all of our postdocs actually went through the student program, but we try to, now I can't speak exactly the figures because that's completely not my jurisdiction, but I mean, we have a good number, like you guys, yeah. And a lot of them are about, they're for nationals, most of them actually. But we're trying to create this pipeline where that you come in at high school, you start doing the research because, mentors, they'll gradually become comfortable with you, you'll gain more experience. Each summer, maybe if you're a year-round student, you'll even get more projects handed to you because they know that you're capable of doing the work. So I would suggest, if you want an internship and you want to work at a national lab, I would do it as soon as possible because, I mean, no one is ever really ready, or they may not feel ready, but they will make sure that you are comfortable with what you're doing and then gradually place more on your shoulders. So doing it at the high school level is probably ideal because we are trying to create this pipeline where high school all the way through, your post, once you're done with your PhD, you can then get a job at the lab and you've worked there since you're, 16? I mean, that's really what we would like to do, and I know within the next 5 years we're going to be picking from the student population to just convert them so that they become our new workforce. So if you guys really want a job and you want to work, start now, get that internship, make those connections, and network your butt off when you get to the lab because then you will be more likely to stay than someone who's just working and just focusing on their work and not getting out to the lab, So it's a lot about selling yourself.
I'll add to that. So I'll add to it is that definitely expose yourself. No fear. Just expose yourself. I was part of a program in Puerto Rico for 5 years where, they expose young students at the middle school level. I mean, and think about it. Think about the science fairs. You are doing research at that level. So in that light, you actually are doing it. Now, you probably got an inkling then whether or not you had liked it or disliked it or whatever, but it's different though in each phase. So you want to try and expose yourself to it as much as possible to actually figure it out. And if you don't know what you want to do or where you're going to go, grad school is a good option. I basically have mentor a lot of students across the globe, and you know, one of the things I tell them is that if you do not know, go ahead on to grad school. Like they said, you don't have to pay for it. So it's kind of a freebie. So, you know, to try to have that exposure, you know, and as of right now, you know, I recommended 4 women to actually go to the University of Florida. All 4 in the PhD program there.
Hey.
Florida has the #1 number of faculty, female. And now they have the most diverse population of minorities getting their PhDs. Most of those women as well, 25. They represent 24% of all the African American female population in the country. No matter discipline, getting PhDs, as an example. So, and I'll tell you, there was 3 of those women I recommended to actually go to their PhD, and they're so happy that they are doing that right now. And I actually feel, especially after Hidden Figures came out and everything, they feel powerful right now because they're represented, and they're saying that we're not going to be hidden. We want people to see us, which is good. So expose yourself to the research. That's what they did, and that's why they're doing it.
So the short answer is you guys should all be planning and applying for internships. Who here knows what they're going to be doing this summer? So about 30–40% of you, every one of you are going to be doing something this summer, right? So in fact, you're going to be applying to things in a few minutes as well. I might offer a slightly different perspective.
No. Hey, it can be controversial. Go ahead.
So one of the things I often think is valuable is the exposure to what you do before actually coming back to school, right? So in fact, use the opportunities now. No one here is in high school, so you know, but to get that exposure, because it often informs what you want to do in going back to graduate school. It often motivates and inspires what you want to do in graduate school, and that can make for a much richer experience, right? Because one of the things I personally find challenging is doing something and going through the motions, but not being exactly clear to myself why I'm doing it, right? So think about both perspectives, right?
And a compliment to that, I would say, is volunteer. Volunteer to help young people. That's going to give you some insight as to what you're going to want to do. So, you know, some of those young ladies that basically I was talking about, we put on an effort that was spearheaded by this last administration called My Brother's Keeper. And that was exposed young men and ladies to science. And what ended up happening is that this year we're going to have around 300 students, I think, come through the lab, but providing them that type of experience, that really motivated a lot of not only our own staff, but all the students, because we did it one time during the summer, and they were just so jazzed by it, having that exposure and that experience. And we do that on a number of different levels across the laboratories. I think, for example, Argonne brings in 400 young women into their laboratory. Los Alamos bring a number of them as well,
We
right?
have so many students, we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah. So we all do that, and it's a really unique opportunity to see how that work that you're even doing over the summer and how it plays out into the other young people's hands and stuff. So if you expose yourself to that, then it'd be good.
So if I am trying to get connected, trying to get engaged, trying to get exposure, and I haven't yet had some of these experiences, given that these programs are highly selective, what then are some of the evaluation criteria that stand out, that matter more if I don't have the opportunity to say, I've already done this research experience, I've already done this internship. So what are some of the things then that I can play up? What are some of the things that you guys look out for the less seasoned student?
Well, I did bring Andrew Montoya. What do you look for? He works in HPC, high performance computing at the lab, Los Alamos National Lab. What do you look for in students? Because I only deal with their resumes and cover letters, and as long as everything looks good, we're good to go.
Do you want to come up and join us, Andrew?
To put him on the spot, yeah. Put him on the
She's
spot.
determined.
I mean, because you're the one, you're at the front lines who hire, students, so what do you?
So, I mean, our main priority is making sure students, their education, right? Their education is the most important. What I look for, at least in my high performance computing, is students with some IT experience that maybe want to gain some knowledge in high performance computing, or maybe they don't know what high performance computing actually is, and this is a perfect time for them to get their feet wet, see if this is something that they want to get into for their careers, right?
Yeah, and for us, I mean, students will be like, do you know of any opportunities that may or may not come up? And we have a variety of different students. I mean, we have business students. By trade, I'm a historian and in higher ed. So there's so many different aspects to these students that are coming in. And really what I'm looking for is their education, make sure that you guys are full-time, that you're meeting our GPA requirements. But if I see something that really stands out, so if your cover letter says I have a little bit of experience in X, Y, and Z, then it helps me see, okay, these students could fit in these various areas, and then I can push your resume cover letter off to potential mentors if you guys haven't made that point of contact. But yeah, for us, I only see, a handful. I usually deal with the returning students and make sure that they're meeting requirements.
So for us, it all depends on the different mentors and basically where it is. So the key aspect of what you need to work on is your resume. All right, that needs to speak volumes for you. All right, and not even so much the cover letter at times. So that objective statement will help, but really highlighting your skills, what skills you have. They are going to look at what school you have. We have a lot of unconscious bias that basically goes on at the labs and such, and in the industry in general. I mean, it's familiarity. People like to recruit where they go. So she was yelling up for Florida, right? So she's going to go back to Florida and basically be looking for other Floridians, right? In that sense, just like alumni from your university and stuff. It happens. We all do it. It's not something we should really separate ourselves from. But with that said, skills, you want to cite your education. Now, with that education piece, talk about the projects and things to the level that you can talk about that explains what you did and how you applied what you did learning-wise.
It's your opportunity to sell yourself.
It's a really unique opportunity to sell yourself, and the resume is going to speak volumes for you.
So I'll add a comment to the concept of the pedigree bias, university bias,
And GPA bias.
GPA bias, all these biases. The advice I give to my students when they're concerned whether their resume or CV will get looked at as much as the person from UC Berkeley or the person from Illinois, or pick your top 10 or top 20 institution, I say the opportunities are there for everyone, right? So the difference between being at a lesser known university and a better known university is at the better known universities, the companies and the labs are there actively recruiting. At the lesser known universities, you need to be more proactive. You need to find a support network, a mentor, an advisor who is willing to help you be proactive and make these connections. But the connections are there to be made, and the connections are there to be had, right? There's a plus side, as I see it, right? A potential plus side. I'll say this as elegantly as I can, but I'll say it anyway. If someone from one of these well-reputed institutions is being interviewed, is being questioned, probed, just you're having a conversation with that person, because of our biases, we're expecting to be wowed, right? We're expecting, oh, you're from MIT, wow me, right? You can't be good. You have to be excellent to impress me because I expect you to be good, right? Flip it around, right? For good, bad, or indifferent, when somebody's from an institution that you're less familiar with, you don't know what to expect, right? And so sometimes you're impressed just because they're knowledgeable, right? And so there's an opportunity. If you're actually performing well, if you're actually getting the most from your institution and learning the same things, all the universities offer the same instructional material. There's no magic, right? There's no instructional material at Stanford that is not available to the University of New Mexico. We all teach the same things. So the opportunities for the students to get those materials are there for everyone, right? If you make the most of where you are and get that knowledge, you have an opportunity to actually shine when the interviewer from Google or from Lawrence Livermore is asking you a question, wondering, like, I think this will trip this person up because this person comes from some university that I do not recognize, and you just give the right answer. And they become more impressed than they should be because they weren't sure whether you would give the right answer or not. So there's an opportunity, right? And so, yeah, I guess that's the response to that. So one question I wanted to ask to sort of segue into the next section is about the power of our networks, right? The power of our mentor networks, the power of our external networks. So the specific question I'll ask is, for people who are getting internships at these labs, for the thousands of resumes that you get and whatever down selection is made, how many of those people have had like a mentor or someone reach out or say, I'm sending my student to you guys, versus what I'll call a cold submission, where this person had no connection into the lab or the organization, right? So how does that play out in practice general? Do most people usually have some sort of connection? And then talk a little bit more about the value of a mentor reaching out, say, take a look at my student's resume, right? He or she is planning to participate in the program.
So at the Los Alamos National Lab, you pretty much have to have a connection, and a lot of the people who do apply, I mean, we get about 1,000 in that job posting, the generic undergrad and grad. I have over 2,000 people who apply. If you're not reaching out to someone, you're probably not going to get picked up by a mentor, unless you're absolutely outstanding or you're super unique. And we have mentors who are looking at our database, looking for a specific skill set. For the mentors to come to me, most of the time I have to send out resumes, and then they come and they say, this is the student I want. I think maybe in the past 2 years, I've only had a handful of mentors say, I want this student, how do they apply? Which is, I mean, they either met at a career fair or that does happen, but they've already made that connection. So you do have to have some type of a network before even going into the internship arena at the lab. And I don't know about you guys, is it similar or?
I don't know if we actually looked at that data point, to be honest. I can tell you that where we do pick up a number of students, especially the undergrads, is through like the ESULI program and things of that nature. So those are people that, typically are not affiliated. I would also say, as part of our focus when we go out to career fairs, conferences, schools, things of that nature, that we actually end up getting a lot more students that are not basically there. And it takes folks, myself and others, basically advocating, championing, to actually come in. So, I want to say it's probably more like our newbies are more, I showed you, the returning student was 33%, so 70-30. So with that in mind, think about that. We are actually going out and trying to bring in as many as we can. Now, if you're on that graduate track, you are that returning student, and you're going to go through that progression. But the undergrads and stuff, they actually come in, and I would say, about 70%. Now, as far as the mentoring goes, to answer this question about mentoring, you really, you need that. You need that across the board. And we basically do it, as I said earlier, I do it quite a bit in helping facilitate students and leveraging what they want to do and where they want to go as much as possible. So that's a big one.
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide a little insight. So I'm one of Dorian's students and just recently got my PhD, and I've been an intern at Yahoo and Sandia National Labs for 3 years or so. And In each of those cases, particularly Sandia, it was, you know, knocking on my mentor's door saying, hey, I like the research you're doing, do you need an intern? Like, just being frank about it and putting yourself out there. It doesn't always work, but it, you know, it'll work eventually, and you only need that one time, because you're gonna be judged on your success, you know, so. And another sort of anecdote on the sort of importance of the network is, so I, you know, just graduated, applied for maybe 20 jobs, kind of cold applications out there, and out of those 20,